Good morning. Welcome to the second day of Almo's E4V for spring 2021. I'm Mandy Beckner. I'm the president and COO of the RAVE agency. Now, this is not your typical online virtual event. We have the industry's best presenters live. We have original curated content specifically for you. We have oodles of CTSRUs and no cheesy online booths with PDFs and broken links. No. Now, yesterday we had a great day full of UCC and Pro AV sessions. If you missed any of yesterday's sessions, you'll find those recordings now in the UCC and Pro AV Solution Centers on this side of your screen. These will be available for the next month, so make sure you check those out. You'll see Gary Kay's take on the future of UCC, Joe Cornwall's walk through the operation and AV applications of USB-C, and Tom Kerr did a live demo of a walkthrough of game staging, and we had the NSC roundtable about hybrid UCC. Today, our focus will be on emerging technologies and corporate AV. Before we get started, let's take a tour of the platform. You are currently in the main stage. This is where all the live content will happen all day. You earn up to 3 CTS credits by attending the live sessions. Instructions for how to receive these will be emailed to you within 14 days. To the right of the screen is the questions and comments section. This is where we take your questions for our presenters after they're finished with their session. Engage with us further by answering the poll questions right below this screen. And under the fold of that is launch networking. This is where I can see already some of you are doing this. You can connect with one another as a group or for private chat. Almo representatives who really want to catch up with you are here along with your fellow attendees. Throughout the day and in breaks, make sure you check out the Solution Centers. This is where the recordings are from yesterday, and also other carefully curated videos and products from Almo and our manufacturers. In each Solution Center, you can earn up to an additional 6 CTSRUs. You watch the 4 SEI videos, and then after the videos, take a quiz. Find today's schedule using the navigation bar on the right, on the left, and also reach out to our solution providers. You can click their logo and fill out a contact form. At any point, if you need technical help, just click the Get Help button on the bottom left of your screen. And that's it. I'll be back periodically through the day to remind you about all the amazing things that we have to offer throughout this event. And now, our first session. The first session today is the Reimagined Workplace, the role of existing and emerging technology with Pete Koman. Before we get started, let's hear a message from Jabra.
The 2020s are here, and as we usher in a new decade, what's changed? Remote collaboration, all day, every day. The collaboration hub of choice for the 2020s is Microsoft Teams with a high-quality audio and video solution. We've all been in a meeting where you can't see everyone on screen, or where stilted audio interrupts the conversation flow. We engineered the Teams-certified Jabra Panicast to include everyone in the meeting with a unique 180-degree field of view. And everyone can be heard with the rich simultaneous audio of the Teams-certified Jabra Speak 750. Meeting rooms that are certified, compatible, and ready to work with Teams? Check. We then thought, how can we make it even easier? With plug-and-play connectivity, you are always ready to go, allowing your teams to focus on what really matters. With our dedicated Microsoft Teams button, it's never been easier to collaborate. Meeting ready in an instant at the touch of a button? Check. So why are certified devices important? Well, thanks to our in-depth integration, using Teams with a certified Jabra product makes the whole experience seamless. That's good because, well, the more your team uses Teams and love it, the more they'll love Teams and use it. A Teams experience that your team will love? Check. We're ready when you are. Ready for your team. Ready for Teams.
Thank you, Jabra. Pete Koman is an award-winning digital workplace experience designer whose career spans 30 years in the tech industry. Pete recently took a role of Chief Technology Officer for PTS, and he's currently working with organizations to help them reimagine their workplace by leveraging smart technologies to enhance workplace activities and the user experience. Welcome, Pete.
G'day everyone, I'm Pete Techman Coman from PTS in New York. I'm the Chief Technology Officer, and I'm super excited to be presenting the Reimagined Workplace, the role of existing and emerging technology. A special thanks to Almo for asking me to present today, and also we can't forget Jabra, who are sponsoring today's presentation. So thank you to everyone involved. Just a little bit of background, PTS, People Technology Space. PTS is the world's premier digital workplace experience design company. And we help organizations around the world reimagine their workplace by leveraging smart technologies that augment activities in the workplace and attract and retain talent, whilst enriching the user experience. And when we talk about a workplace, we like to refer to it as a three-legged stool, where you have the people, the technology, and the space. And just like a three-legged stool, all three aspects need to work together, need to come together and to work as one. And typically, technology is the enabler of all that. So if we cast our minds back 12 months, 18 months ago, the workplace was already changing, right? And it was critical for enterprises to adopt new technologies to fuel employee engagement and to improve the culture. Because millennials were starting to dominate the workplace, and it's vital for the technology to draw users in a friendly and familiar way to create an amazing user experience. Now, we recognize that one size doesn't fit all, and especially, we're talking about post-COVID now, where we've got a lot of people that are working remotely. So the workplace has changed significantly to what we knew 18 months ago. But today I want to run through a lot of different technologies that not only that we are deploying as designers here in New York, but also future technologies that are emerging that I believe will be adopted in the years to come. As I mentioned before, obviously, I think that the workplace is going to be changing, especially over the next 12 months. Whilst I'm an optimist and I would love for everyone just to come back to the office, I understand that that's unlikely to happen in the near term, and that will be adopting some sort of hybrid model. So bringing some people back and allowing others to work remotely, possibly more flexibility for the employees within these organizations. And once again, technology is the enabler of all this. It's the backbone that enables these types of work arrangements to actually exist. This is a term that I hear a lot, and I just wanted to address it before we get too far into the presentation, because I think that whilst we focus, we tend to focus on ourselves. I think that we need to be focusing on others, and the term that I hear a lot is "I'm more productive when I work from home," and no doubt that is probably the case for most individuals. I mean, some people have a lot more distractions at home. I get that, and they come to the workplace so they can focus. But a lot of other people actually have to travel a fair way to get in and out of the office, and so they look at working from home or working remotely as being more productive. And I understand that. I would probably be more productive if I also work from home. But I think one thing that we can't lose sight of is the next generation of workers that are coming through. Myself, I learned by being mentored by people, by being mentored by others, having people beside me to show me the ropes, to show me how to do things. And I think that we just can't lose focus of the fact that the workplace is an incubator for the next generation of workers, where we as industry professionals need to be giving back to this younger generation coming through, so we can help them learn and get this experience that is needed and pass on our knowledge and experience to them. It's a quote from Steve Jobs, and this is another reason why I believe that I think that the workplace plays such a pivotal role, and why we need it and why we need to be coming back. And Steve Jobs famously said, "Now there's a temptation in our networked age to think that that ideas can be developed by email and iChat. Right? Creativity comes from spontaneous meetings and from random discussions." And I think that is so true. And that used to happen on a regular basis. You come to work, you randomly interact with your colleagues, you share ideas and concepts. And I think that once again, we can't lose sight of that fact of how important that interaction actually is. A great analogy is, it's like, why do we go to restaurants? Why do we go out? I mean, we have a kitchen at home. We can cook our own food. We can prepare it all. We don't need restaurants, but we go to restaurants because we want to interact with other people, interact with our friends, share ideas, share our experience with others. And we also go there for the experience. And just like a restaurant, the workplace is all about the user experience. When we design, we are always looking at creating a frictionless environment. And a good example of a frictionless environment is a Amazon Go store. For those that are not familiar with Amazon Go, it is a small supermarket size of a 7-Eleven. And basically what happens is that you scan your phone on the way in as you go through the turnstiles, and you walk around and you pick up whatever you want, and you basically walk straight out. There's no cashier. You're not, using your credit card or swiping. It all automatically just goes straight to or gets charged straight to your Amazon account. Now, so it's probably the most frictionless experience you could ever have. So as designers, that's our goal as well when we're designing the workplace. Now, the technology plays such a key role in all of this. And, if you actually go into an Amazon Go store and you look up, there's hundreds of sensors that actually track your movements and track what you're picking up. But the technology is in the background. So all of this, everything that's going on is completely seamless. And once again, that is our goal as workplace experience designers, so digital workplace experience, to design this seamless, frictionless environment. Speaking of frictionless, probably the most frictionless experience that you could have is voice technologies or smart assistants. Obviously, with post-COVID, we're more fearful of touching surfaces, and that's where something like a technology such as voice can really come into play and can play a pivotal role in control of our workplaces moving forward. I mean, there is 60% of US households own a smart assistant of some sort. So it's only a matter of time before voice is actually deployed from a control point of view in our workplace. Along with touchless, we have touchless. Now, these one-touch meeting joins have been around, for a little while now, but we're seeing more and more clients wanting this technology deployed. Well, once again, people don't want to touch many surfaces, but on top of that, people want a seamless experience. It has to be, if you're deploying this kind of technology or any kind of technology within the workplace, it has to be simple to use. It has to be intuitive. And that's why we're seeing such an adoption of, whether it be a Zoom room or a Teams room, and having this one-touch meeting join option. And once again, it's solving two problems there. It's obviously allowing people to touch surfaces less, and also it creates a better user experience. Another thing that we're seeing in a lot of our projects is the use of personal devices to control the room. And the most common device is our mobile phone. And so the user can, what we can do now is obviously the user can walk into some sort of space, or any whether it's a meeting space And then what happens is that we can have Bluetooth beacons within those spaces, and the phone knows what room the user is in. So it only gives them the options to control that space, not others. So you're not scrolling through the phone looking for, a list of rooms to be, to choose from. Another thing that I think what we'll start to see more of is having a platform neutral room. And what I mean by that is that at the moment, when we set up these spaces, what we have to make a decision. Do we have a Zoom room? Do we have a Teams room? Is it a WebEx room? And we're being forced to choose. Now, that's fine. I understand organizations need to standardize on a platform, and what will happen there, but the problem happens is when someone invites you to a meeting and it's different to the platform that you use. So you might have your Zoom room set up, ready to go. I get invited to a Teams meeting, and then suddenly I'm like, okay, well, how do I join from this space? So I believe what needs to happen is that organizations or manufacturers need to develop technology that allows us to add a room that we didn't create. So, like I said, if I get invited to a Zoom meeting, to a Teams meeting, and I've got Zoom room, I should be able to add my Zoom room to that meeting invite, and I could walk in and do the one touch. The other thing that I think that should happen also is that these platforms, once again, you're typically choosing one before and making that choice up front. And we all know that we're on different platforms every single day. So I believe that these UC platforms need to actually reside natively on the user interface, i.e. the touch panel. So I don't need a PC in the room. I could actually just run these applications directly from that one device. So with the smaller rooms, what we've seen over the years is a trend to go either with a more integrated device, so a display with built-in microphones, speakers, cameras, or the alternative has been USB devices, USB camera, microphone, speaker, and a PC within the room. And that's fine, that works. I mean, these products are becoming, better and better over time. But when we start talking about the larger spaces, that's when we start to deploy a lot more technology, and we require more components within the room to make it function or to better the user experience. And I think one of the things that, one of the areas that we could really leverage is cloud computing. So in the previous example, I mentioned about having a PC in the room. So what if we could do away with that PC? How do we reduce the hardware that is required for these spaces? And I think cloud computing is one way of doing that. So we can have these UC platforms running in the cloud. We don't need a PC within the room. And we are starting to see more and more integrated devices. Therefore, there is less technology that's now required within the space. A great example of this is software DSP. So whether you're running it in the cloud or running it on a PC locally, having the ability to enhance the audio experience without having another black box in the room, I believe is a real advantage. And I think that we'll start to see more and more organizations sort of going down that path. Other technologies that we're seeing deployed in these kinds of meeting spaces is intelligent cameras. And what do I mean by intelligent cameras? Well, obviously we can count the number of people in there, but once again, we're trying to create a frictionless environment. And by having a camera that's either auto tracking or auto framing, suddenly we're not relying on the user sort of going to a touch panel or some sort of control platform to actually control and adjust, say, a PTZ camera to have a nice, close, tight shot. what's happened, since everyone started working remotely, is that we're all working in front of our own PCs. We have a camera right in front of our face. So the experience has been our heads, our faces have been framed into windows. We're not, because of what's happened in the last 12 months, we're not used to looking at people in a room. So we've had some of our clients say, who have gone back to the office, they've turned around and you've got the people within the meeting space and they're saying, oh, you're too far away. But the experience hadn't changed at all. Like it's the same setup, pre-COVID versus post-COVID, but because the users have become so used to people's faces being framed and it's a lot more personal, that the experience has changed for everyone. Everyone's sort of forgotten how it used to be. So by having auto-framing, auto-tracking cameras, you can try and create a similar personal experience that they've been used to for the last 12 months. I mentioned before about having less hardware within the room. I really think that the middleware it's already disappearing, but it will continue to disappear. I think in the past, there's been a lot of black boxes and smoke and mirrors that have gone on in these spaces. I think it's going to become a lot more simplified. And the main reason behind that is the fact that all these common devices that we use, microphones, speakers, cameras, displays, all of that is now on the network and now resides on the network. We're using technologies that utilize the client's network infrastructure to transport audio and video signals around. So basically all we need is these 4 devices. Typically, once again, it's not one size fits all, but typically we only need these 4 devices within a space, and all that can go on the network and we can have all that functioning seamlessly without the use of any additional equipment. Some emerging technologies that I think we'll start to see deployed in the years to come, technologies such as transparent OLED displays. Now, in my opening slide, I spoke about the 3-legged stool, and we spoke about the people, the culture, the technology, and the space or the environment. So I believe that as designers, there's always going to be a compromise. So, and a lot of these new spaces, workplaces, we try to keep things, as the designers, the interior designers and the architects try to keep things obviously as transparent as possible. We're trying to take advantage of natural light. We want to see people around us. We're building more spaces using glass. But the challenge from a technology or an AV point of view there is, where do we put the display? If we have 4 glass walls, where does the display go? Now, sure, the user experience within the room with a normal display in front of glass, that might be fine, but you think about the installation of that. It's very difficult to mount it to the glass. Typically, we need to mount it from the ceiling. We've got to get cables down, and it might look okay within the room, but when you're on the other side of the room, you see this big black box hanging from the ceiling. So I believe that we can start to utilize this kind of technology, transparent OLED, so when the display, even if it's in use, it's still transparent when you see it from the back side. So I think we need to compromise the tech with the environment to create an overall user experience, not just for the people in the room, but outside the room. And as an extension to that, staying with OLED, we've seen companies like LG release their roll-up OLED displays. So for a larger space, instead of using projection, I believe that we'll start to see roll-up OLED being dropped from the ceiling. Like, we can do bigger displays with it. It's out of sight. You could drop it down in front of a window if required. I think that we'll start to see, in certain spaces, we'll start to see less projection being used only once prices start to come down, because these OLED roll-up displays are a little pricey at the moment. But it's really, really cool technology. I think we could take advantage of that. When it comes to control within the space, I mean, earlier I spoke about sort of one-touch meeting joins, and I spoke about voice control. As an extension to that, I believe that these larger organizations, such as your Googles, these big tech companies, your Amazons of the world, they already have, obviously, cost-effective displays that are being deployed. And they're familiar. A lot of people have these devices already at home. They feel comfortable with this kind of product. So I think that you'll start to see these devices rolled out as control. I mean, something like that, you know, like this Alexa Show 10-inch, something like $150. So, and Amazon already have Alexa for Business running in, you know, that they, which is something they've set up over the last couple of years with this in mind. So, you know, from a control point of view, they're tying in the voice technology, which they already have, into a cost-effective display. And once the rooms are becoming simpler as well, right? So we typically won't be needing the high complexity of control that we've required in the past. And when we're designing spaces, one thing that comes up a lot with our clients is that they want a flexible space, or they want a space that's adaptable. So, for instance, you know, we're working with a large client at the moment who have these spaces that they want to be able to flip, not on the fly, but as time goes on. So they might turn around and say, look, we think that we need 34-person meeting rooms. And then maybe in 12 months' time, they realize actually they need more huddle rooms. So how can they adapt the same physical space to have a different function? So what we're doing is that we're designing the infrastructure, so designing the power and the data to be in locations that are appropriate if the room needs to be flipped, or the purpose of the room needs to be changed. I think one factor that really helps with this adaptability is raised floors. Obviously, raised floors are not that common in the US. They're more so in the UK. You find them in a lot of organizations because it does give them that flexibility to reroute power and data and other services beneath the floor. So I think that we need to be thinking about this when we're starting out on a project. What else could this space be used for? Because it's always cheaper. The cabling is not the expensive part. It's the devices that you plug into the end of it that cost the money. So get the infrastructure in, get it ready, talk to the clients, work with them, and work out how these rooms could be used or could be transformed moving forward. You know, we talk about having an adaptable room. We also need to have flexible spaces, and technology can play a pivotal role in this. So how could we use technology to complement the flexible physical space? So do we have more battery-powered devices? Do we have more technology, whether that's screens or whatever it may be, on wheels? How are we designing to create to support a flexible space? And there's a lot of technology out there that allows us to do that, beamforming microphones, that kind of thing. So it's very important, and it's something that comes up a lot on our projects. And once again, technology can be the enabler of all this and needs to work hand in hand with the architecture. Another challenge that we're facing is how can we collaborate without walls? So what I mean by that is, at the moment, when we're in a meeting, we're typically confined to 4 walls and a screen on one of those walls. So how can we utilize other spaces within the organization? How can we utilize the cafe, for example? How can we utilize outdoor areas where we can collaborate and share technology, share ideas and concepts with each other without being confined to a room? And there are technologies out there that allow us to do that. You know, I'm not going to go into any particular brands, but there are products out there that allow us to share that content anywhere, anytime, right? So we're not confined to a physical space. And once again, I think you'll see more technologies come out that will support that in the years to come. Another technology that will enable that to meet anywhere, anytime is augmented reality. So imagine, like in the previous example, we had to have some sort of device, some sort of mobile device, be it a laptop or a phone or a tablet, to be able to share and collaborate with each other. So the next step on from that is doing that without those devices. So what if we could just wear glasses and share that content with one another? So we're still face to face. We still see people's facial expressions and their body language, but being able to share content and information in any kind of environment. And when you see companies like, I mean, obviously, you know, you've heard of Google Glass, and there's been other products out there. But, you know, when an organization like Apple brings a product out, then quite often it legitimizes that product. And they have their augmented reality glasses due to come out like in about 18 months' time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens once they're released, and see the adoption rate and how we can use, as designers, how we can use this technology to improve that user experience. Now, this is something that I think we're going to see a lot more of. Like in pre-COVID, we used to go into a room, into a space where we sat around a table and we met. And we had people coming in remotely, and we had people within the room. I really believe that we're actually going to have less of a requirement for meeting spaces. I think that we've all become so accustomed to jumping on a call in front of our PC, at our desk, at our home, that I think that trend will continue into, you know, the workplaces of the future. So I think as a result, you will need less meeting spaces. I don't think the meeting spaces will totally disappear. I think there's always a reason for those spaces. You need privacy. You want people, you know, to come together within in the same space. But we're so used to being on a call with someone, like I mentioned before, where everyone's face is framed on the screen. Now, I know what you're thinking is this is probably fine at home, where, you know, if you've got a spare room or something like that. But what about in the open workplace? See, that's the challenge that we need to solve there, because the open workplace, we can control a lot of aspects of it. You know, we could be wearing headphones, we could have microphones, we can do that. We can control the digital aspect. But one part of this that we find very, very difficult to control is the analog side, our voices. You know, some people talk louder than others, and you can only imagine if you had a open work plan with all these desks and all these people are on calls at the same time. It would be a nightmare. So I think that someone needs to come up with some form of acoustic air curtain. So if we could turn around and acoustically frame our workspace with this invisible acoustic curtain, then we can solve those problems, and we can allow that and facilitate meetings from our desks. So speaking about our desks, I think that what needs to happen is, or what we're going to see more of, is personalization of our workspace. So over the years, we've seen more and more sit-stand desks come into play to give people options there. I think you're going to see more flexibility. I think you'll see more furniture on wheels. But added to that, to enable this flexibility, I think what you're going to see is having these workstations with battery-powered desktops. So imagine having the ability to just come in with your laptop and just actually have it an induction charged mat or area surface on that at your workstation, and I don't need any wires. I don't need to plug in. I don't need to do anything. There's batteries built into it. Obviously, you need to charge the desk at the end of the day, you plug it in and power it back up again. But having that flexibility to be able to actually just sit down somewhere without the use of cables. Obviously, we've got Wi-Fi that we can use for our data, but power has always been the issue. So I think we'll start to see this kind of technology being deployed in the not too distant future. Another key component to all this is lighting. There needs to be a lot more personalization when it comes to lighting. We're all different. I like a dimmer environment. Some people like a brighter environment. And at the moment, if most people's offices are all or nothing, we don't have personalization of our individual area. So I think that, the technology is there. We can do it. I just think that it needs to be deployed to allow that. I think that you'll also start to see wireless power as well. So I mentioned before about having the power built in, or the induction and the batteries built into the workstation itself, I think we can optimize the workspace by deploying lighting that's doing a second task, which is actually providing power to our devices, our mobile devices. So we can just leave it on the desk and have it charged up. But what I'd really like to see is having personalized climate control. I think this is one of the biggest issues that we face with our projects is, you have different people who, some people are hotter than others, right? Where they turn around and they, if you have a thermostat on the wall that's adjustable, people get up all the time and are fighting over the thermostat. So how do we personalize this? How do we get air to the desk? Once again, you could be deploying raised floors. We could be circulating the air within the plenum of the raised floor, and then having some sort of control at your workstation to control the temperature and the flow of air. Interestingly, going back 13 years ago, we designed a facility that did exactly that back in Australia. So they saw the need to actually have control at their desks. It wasn't as sophisticated as the example, the Tesla example that I'm displaying here at the moment. However, it gave the users control of the airflow at their workstations to create a more comfortable environment. So it can be done. Circadian rhythm lighting is another interesting technology that I think we'll see a lot more of moving forward. It's typically been reserved for more critical spaces, control rooms, where there's no windows and the rooms are operating 24/7. But once again, the technology's been around for a long time now. How do we deploy this technology, or why aren't we deploying this technology to assist with the well-being, to create alertness and a better experience for the employees within the space? This image here is of an air quality monitor. So once again, we're seeing a lot more of these devices being rolled out in the workplace, which is great. I mean, it's part of the LEED standard. You get points for putting, or the WELL standard, I should say. You get points for actually putting these devices within the workplace. So you're monitoring the air, not just the temperature, the humidity, but you're also measuring things like the VOCs in the air, or the oxygen within the space. But the problem with the problem that we're not solving is we're monitoring what is happening in the workplace, but what we're not doing, or typically what we're not doing, is doing anything about it. So what if those levels are high? There's not enough CO2 in the air. There is there's too many chemicals going on in the space. How do we do something about it? So obviously we can approach it from a mechanical point of view. We can design systems to allow more fresh air into the workplace. I mean, or it might be as simple as opening a window, designing buildings where we can open windows. Now, granted, that might not work in all environments. New York City would be a prime example of that, where you're probably letting more pollutants on, when things are back to normal, that is, you're probably letting more pollutants in than what you're letting out. But these are the kinds of things that we need to be considering with well-being at the forefront of people's minds when we return to the office. And if we're talking about technology and how we can assist with those issues that we're facing, I mean, there are products out there now that are coming to market because of COVID to not just purify the air, but sanitize the air. So granted, we're not going to be coming back to work with, rooms like this that are full of blue ultraviolet lights, but there will be products out there, devices out there. As I said, we're already talking to companies who have built these and, deploying this kind of technology out there to solve a problem, right? To purify the air, to make people feel safe when they return back to the workplace. Now, when we talk about well-being, I think one of the biggest things is like we need to monitor how someone is feeling. Like how do we do that? Well, obviously there's wearables out there where we can, like this ring, where we can monitor people's stress levels or their heart rates or their breath. You can do that. Okay, that's great. We're getting some good information about that individual. There's products like this. It's a small band that you wear, and it's got two buttons on it. One is I'm happy or I'm unhappy. Now, that requires user intervention. It requires someone to sort of press the button throughout the day. But, this is a good starting point. Granted, this is not the be all and end all, but, you can see where this technology is going. So if this could become non-intrusive or non-invasive or require no user interaction, that would be the ideal place to be. But it's the fact that it exists, and we can, as an employer, get information from the employees of how they're feeling within the workplace, gives us the opportunity to be able to make a difference and improve that over time. Without that data, we can't do anything. Another great example is an Apple Watch where it's preemptive. You'll notice it, like for me, throughout the day, it'll vibrate, and I look down. It's like, time to stand, time to breathe. Right. So the technology not only should be monitoring our well-being, but it should be actually advising and being preemptive about what we can do to resolve any problems that may be occurring or that the device is monitoring. Now, I mentioned before it should be non-invasive. I think that's the big thing with tech. It's great that tech exists and we wear it and so on. But if you're like myself, when I'm sitting down and I'm working, I don't like wearing watches or having any rings on or anything like that. So the technology should be non-invasive. So in the example here is, what if we built this technology into a seat, our office chairs, and we have these smart chairs where it can measure our well-being. It can measure whether it be heart rate, our breath rate, whatever it may be. So we don't have to do anything. We have to sit, typically, some of us stand, and it monitors that. There is similar products out there. I mean, I have, being in the tech game, I have a smart bed. I have a sleep number bed. And what that does is that monitors my sleep throughout the night. It monitors my breath rate. It monitors my restlessness, and I don't have to do anything. I don't have to start it. I don't have to stop it. I don't have to wear anything. It just happens automatically. Now, granted, we're not going to be issuing all these sleep number beds out in the workplace, but that technology, how do we deploy that technology into the common, whether it be office furniture or environment that we're working in? I spoke earlier about voice, but that was more on the control side of things. This product here, this gets me really excited. I think there's a lot of opportunity for this kind of technology to be deployed into the workplace. Granted, it might seem a bit Big Brother with monitoring the tone of voice within a workplace. But what it is, it's a band. It's a sports band. I've got one here. It's from Amazon. It's called Amazon Halo, and it measures the tone of your voice. So it's obviously, yes, it's always listening in. Same with, Alexa or Google or all these other products. So there's obviously the privacy concern that needs to be overcome. But the fact that you could monitor the tone of people's voices within a workplace, so you could identify what a good workplace sounds like and what a bad workplace sounds like, or identify a problem before it actually occurs. Many years, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we were working with an architect back in Australia where they wanted to monitor not so much the tone of the voice, but monitor the workplace. So because it's much easier to visually see what a good workplace looks like and what a bad workplace looks like, but what does it sound like? So I think that this is like the next frontier of well-being, of being able to monitor people's emotions within a workplace. And then once you got that data, you can do something with it. If your desk is anything like mine, you have multiple cameras. I have 5 cameras at my desk, and that doesn't include my phone, my mobile phone. So how do we utilize this technology? So instead of putting more technology in and more cameras and sensors and things like that, we already have this technology in front of us today. How do we leverage that for, once again, we're talking about well-being here. How do we monitor? And we're talking to clients. We're talking to some big organizations around the world of how we do that, once again, for that well-being, to monitor how the users are actually feeling. Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they stressed? And then you can tie that in with preemptive measures. Hey, maybe it's time for a walk, or maybe it's, they need to take a holiday. The technology is already there. Let's utilize that technology to better assist our employees in the workplace. Like I mentioned before, it might seem a bit invasive if we've got all these cameras and microphones around. Once again, we have that at home. There is a lot of devices that we have this technology built into it. Our mobile devices, we typically unlock our phones using facial recognition. So why should it be any different? Why are we okay with unlocking our phone, such a personal device, with our face, yet we're seeming reluctant to use that in the workplace? So I think, once again, there'll be a tipping point as when the advantages that someone gets out of using this technology outweighs any privacy concerns. I mean, Google Maps is a classic example where people willingly sign up for Google to track you around. Why? Because the benefit outweighs the privacy concerns, because I can see where the traffic is. I know exactly what's going on with the trains and the public transportation. So once again, there will become a tipping point where people, whether it's people are too afraid to touch surfaces, whatever it may be, where this technology will start to get implemented. And it's already being implemented in a lot of locations around the world. This image here is actually Sentosa in Singapore. It's Universal Studios. It's a theme park, and they've deployed facial recognition technology to gain access to the park. So once again, if we can overcome these privacy concerns, then this technology is ripe, for the picking in the workplace. Obviously, since COVID, we're starting to see thermal cameras being deployed within buildings. I think this will become a permanent fixture. I also think a lot of workplaces themselves, rather than just the building owners, they will turn around and they will start to deploy this. And you can imagine, there's obviously a lot of litigation that goes on. Imagine if a building owner let someone in that was sick, and they turned around and they infected a lot of people within the building. So I think the building owners need to take a lot more responsibility and deploy this kind of technology just as standard with their managed spaces. And with that, what we're also seeing is things like with visitor registration. What we can do now is that we invite someone into a meeting, and they're coming to our workplace. We can do things as simple as supply them with a QR code. So when they can enter the building using the QR code, they just scan it, they go straight in. And then when they actually get within the workplace, they can turn around, instead of filling out a little touchscreen or like a kiosk or anything like that, they can turn around and just scan it, have the badge printed out for them, and they're off and running. I mean, we're deploying this technology today, so it has been around for a little while, but we're finding there's a need to deploy this kind of stuff. Not only from a security point of view, but from once again a user experience, and going to create a seamless environment. Like I mentioned, I mean, our mobile devices are used for lots of different purposes, including access control. The building where I work in, I don't need to carry a card. I can just swipe my phone and I can gain access. So once again, the technology is becoming a lot more personable, and I'm using existing technology that I carry around with me on a daily basis. And what's interesting is that same technology, that my mobile phone, I could use that to look for a desk. So I could actually, in a lot of open plan offices, all the desks are all bookable, so no one has a permanent seat. So if I'm coming to the office and I want to sit near a certain person or a team, I can do that. I can actually look at my phone. I could pick a seat that I want to sit at, and I can book that ahead of time, basically from anywhere in the world. And it gives me directions. It can give me directions to certain meeting spaces and so on. Once again, we're leveraging the existing technology that we already have and use on a regular basis. One thing that we're really starting to see take off is analytical sensors. So sensors that know if a seat is available or not, or a room is available. I mean, sensors that do people counting, and especially, I think, COVID has fast tracked a lot of these technologies where previously people thought, oh, well, that's a good idea, and that's a nice to have. Now these kinds of technologies are really becoming a must. So we need to know how many people are within a meeting space. Has that number been exceeded or not? How do we know if a seat is available? We can have these sensors. We monitor down to the desk level. Once again, we're rolling this stuff out now with our clients, and even what we can do, we can go, it's so granular. If someone sits at a seat and that hasn't been booked, we know someone has sat there, and we know to inform the cleaners that they need to clean that desk, that workstation, and they can come in and clean it and then clear it off, and then it's available for the next person. But if someone sat there for 30 seconds, it blocks it off for anyone else. So if I'm trying to book a seat or a desk, it's not available. So, but we need these kinds of sensors to be deployed so we know what's going on in the workplace. Like I said, I mean, even just from a cleaning regime, we can identify where people have sat, what rooms are clean, what rooms are dirty, by deploying these sensors. And the example that I gave before was, if a room has been exceeded in number, like the number that is allowed within that space, then a notification is sent out to, the person responsible for that workplace, where they can go and do something about it. One project that we're working on here, we're counting people in and out of the bathroom, because they can't exceed 2 people within that space at any one time. But how do you know how many people are in the bathroom? So we have sensors that count people in and out, that we can identify, oh, look, there's 2 people in there. And then that technology or that information then is available on my mobile device. So you're not walking over to the bathroom. I mean, we have a screen that's outside each of the bathrooms that would be red or green and say available or occupied. But you don't want to get to the bathroom to find out that you can't go in there. So I can get that information from my phone before I even leave my desk. So we're tying all these different technologies together, and using analytical sensors and people counting sensors and that kind of thing, tying it into, into applications, mobile phone applications, where I can view that information, once again, anytime, anywhere. Some future technology that, moving forward from the analytical sensors that we're seeing deployed at the moment, I think the next technology is LiDAR. It can identify, it can actually track a lot more. It can track people's movements through outer space. You need less sensors. And once again, Apple have, they have incorporated LiDAR into the mobile phones, the current range of mobile phones. So once again, it legitimizes the technology, and also it helps reduce the cost. So I think that over time, we'll start to see LiDAR technology be deployed to better understand the way the workplace actually operates. And I think with all this data that we're collecting, all this data, and what we need to do something with it. Now, I really believe that we need to have self-learning or machine learning to understand. I mean, a product as simple as a Nest thermostat is self-learning and understands the behavior of what's going on within a space. So why aren't we doing that with our workplaces? We should be deploying technology where we not only collect the data, but we actually do something with it and automate that whole process, I think is key to all that. Now, the last thing we want is all this acne, this ceiling acne and wall acne all over the place. Having hundreds of sensors and control panels and switches and things like that all over the place. So I think what we'll see over time is that these sensors and devices will become smarter and a lot more integrated. But the problem with that wall acne actually stems back into the design aspect of a project, and typically projects are approached in a siloed manner. So from a design point of view, you have the mechanical engineer, the electrical engineer, someone who's doing security, AV, IT, blah blah blah. You have all these separate silos, and even if they are from the one even if all those people are from the same organization, typically those systems don't talk or work with each other. And that's a real problem. So if they're not designed to work with each other, typically they're not going to be implemented out in the field to work with one another. So we need to rethink our approach and have something that, or have technologies and systems out there that are far more integrated. And rather than trying to just force these technologies together, the way that we do that is via, putting everything on the network. So in the past, what we've seen is that whether it be AV, security, whatever system you like, typically these systems have been, because they've been designed in silos, they're implemented in silos. So that's not a true converged network. The devices might be on the network. That's great. That's a really good starting point. But typically they're implemented in silos. So they have those systems, those technologies have their own network switches. And then nothing talks and integrates with each other. That is not the way that we should be designing and implementing these systems. We should be, all these systems, and as I said, we have more and more devices sitting on the network these days. It needs to be a fully converged network. We need to be deploying high levels of security, regardless of what technology we're deploying, and it needs to be through the client's equipment. So they have full exposure to it and full control over their networks. It's very important. And I think that there is, quite often on our projects, we're dragging the contractors or the manufacturers into these projects kicking and screaming because they just want to be isolated on their own little network. It can't be like that moving forward. You imagine if you imagine if Cisco brought out a new phone or something like that, and they said, oh, it only works with Cisco switches, it wouldn't fly. All this technology, all the product, it's already there. Let's utilize it. So whilst we have all these devices on the network, so we have a converged network, we have all these devices sitting there, they're all network enabled. That's great. What do we do there from there? Even if they are designed in silos, what we can do is add a software layer across all these different disparate technologies. And I believe that this is the most important aspect of the reimagined workplace. Having a software layer there that is able to talk to each of these individual systems, to get that data, to make real-time information, have logic built into it, as well as collect that data and push it off to the data lake so you can use that for historical purposes to better understand your workplace. But this software layer will be the most critical aspect of a smart workplace or a reimagined workplace, because all these technologies, very few of them are designed to actually work together. So they all sit on the same platform. They all sit side by side. Software layer over the top talks to each and every single one of those via whatever is required, APIs, webhooks, whatever. And then it can do that real-time information and bring it together so it all works as one. So we've spoken about a lot of technology over the past hour. The one thing that we should be doing with our workplace is we should be designing it like a Tesla. Okay, our workplace should be like a Tesla. And what I mean by that is that when you buy a Tesla, the Tesla only gets better over time, and through software updates, so that you get greater range or better performance. But with the workplace, what happens is that we turn around, it gets designed, it gets implemented, it gets programmed, and then everyone walks away. And it stays like that in that moment in time forever. And no one is monitoring the workplace. We're not monitoring. Things change. The workplace is constantly changing. We should be monitoring it. We have the technology in there to monitor how that workplace is performing. And then we should be applying software updates and enhancements to that workplace as we're monitoring it over time to make sure that it's staying current and relevant within the workplace. So we need to rethink the way we design and implement and manage moving forward. And that's the presentation. I hope everyone enjoyed that. I believe we've got some questions that come through. I'm not sure if we've actually got time for the questions now, but I'll hand it back to the production team there. And thank you, everyone, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Pete. I have in front of me a tablet with lots of comments and questions that have come in, and we won't have time to get to all of them. So I'm going to summarize for the more nuanced ones to discuss with you now. But I'd want to reassure our audience that Pete will be in our networking module that's on your page in the room called Backstage to take some of your questions and continue the conversation. But the theme I'm seeing, Pete, is interoperability on two fronts. One, interoperability in terms of the gear, frustration in how our kitted solutions or platform-specific solutions are not allowing for flexibility that we need technologically. And on the second front, the interoperability of humans, quite frankly, how the technologists, the AV pros, the networking pros, the facilities designers, the facilities owners work together so that there aren't these siloed designs as you described. I wondered if you wanted to comment on where we need to push back as an industry, as professionals, what we have to accept, or possibly where we need to just shift our mindset.
Sure. So I think that as far as shifting our mindsets, we need to be more network centric, more IT centric. The technology is shifting that way, and I think that as the the AV industry in the past has been very proprietary, and it's like they've, it's had its own cabling systems and transportation systems. Everything's been very, very proprietary. And now we've shifted over into the world of IT where we have standards, and we need to utilize those standards, whether it's infrastructure, cabling standards, whether it's protocol standards, and we need to utilize that. All that is already going into the workplace. How do we take advantage of that? But I think there's in a lot of instances a bit of a knowledge gap or a skills gap, whether that's from even the manufacturers, the designers, the contractors, everyone involved. I think we need to better educate ourselves on the IT platforms and how they work, because everything is going that way. I mean, everything's pretty much on the network as it is, but we need to know more. We need to understand, because we need to be able to talk the talk with the clients. We need to be able to have those conversations with them and to describe problems or describe how something needs to be implemented. So, yeah, I think the education is probably the biggest thing that I see that we need to we need to improve on as an industry. I'm not, it's not pointing fingers at anyone. I think we all can. You never stop learning, right? So I think there's a lot of information that can be had.
I agree. Now, I'm hoping that when you transition from this actual backstage to our networking backstage, that you'll also offer some places that you trust for people to get that education, to level up on that. And you'll also see that people have questions, less nuanced, more specific questions about the audio, the acoustic air curtain, and other solutions there to address, as well as the incorporation of Teams and Zoom and WebEx as recording platforms, particularly in the education space. So you'd be thinking about those and how you want to comment with those in the networking. And Pete, I want to thank you again. Pete will be joined by Brian Radigan in that networking area. So we'll do that. And now we have a message from Almo.
Welcome back for day 2 of E4V. Brian Radigan here, Director of Business Development at Almo. Pete, aka Techman Coleman, is brand new to our speaker lineup this year, and I think you'll agree he did an amazing job. Speaking of new, well, new to Almo that is our newest collaboration line and sponsor of this session, Jabra. Their products are bold yet simple. Jabra products help to create a seamless experience that's fast, easy, while plug-and-play connectivity lets your customers focus on what matters the most, connecting with people, of course. Please reach out if you have any questions about the Jabra offerings carried by Almo, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.